On today's Minute of the Apes, Richard's wagging his finger at me and telling me I actually need to step up my game and do what I know how to do.
Exercise with an ape maker, human down. It talks. With a divine bound. We are determined to know what the apes want. War or peace.
They are the good humans, it's a dead human.
And if it is man's destiny one day to be dominated, then, oh, please, God, let him be dominated by such as you.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. And I enjoy so much teasing Richard because if you've ever heard Richard and you ever think, God, Lee, he got all up in that, there couldn't be a nicer person to sit across the table. I always sit across from Richard. There's no one that is nicer, but I enjoy kicking you in the testes every once in a while with those things.
I'm sweet.
You are sweet. All right, so here we are, minute 30. We are at the end of the week.
We are like a third of the way into the movie at this point.
This movie's flying by. I just wish it were flying by in that it's giving new...
Because the movie's
almost
less than 90 minutes, and we're in minute 30 here.
Oh,
so
it's a long movie.
It's a long movie from that standpoint that we aren't getting a lot of new information yet.
Exactly.
it's a long movie, but I think it's one of the shortest ones in the franchise. So.
It is, and were it to expand upon its themes, we said this ad nauseum, were it to expand upon its theme, show me it once, tell me one thing, show me it again, tell me more, were it to do that, I think we would feel very different about this. It's almost like you could show me these same things over and over and over again if you were furthering the conversation. We aren't doing that too much.
Nope.
So with that said, Sean, tell us what's going on in minute 30.
All right, we start minute 30 with the apes entering their breeding chambers and ends with everybody taking their seats.
All right, let's take a listen. Minute 30 of Conquest, the Planet of the Apes.
254, processed for auction.
Yes, ma'am. For immediate sale, one male gorilla, age 7, fully conditioned bed maker, grade A.
Processed for auction.
Yes, you will be credited after auction.
As minute 30, we have courtyards worth of gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, imported apes, Caesar, and a planet's worth of humans. So was I the only one waiting for, after the apes went in the chambers, the guards just to look at each other, unzip their pants?
That's what you wanted out of it? Oh, my gosh.
Here I am worried about the previous one where it made it look like the babies were getting it on, and now you've got the guards.
Well, they're going to jerk each other off. Come on.
Stop.
My gosh.
I know.
think Sean should write porn.
There.
That's his calling.
Do you not know that's what Sean actually does, David?
Does write porn?
Yeah, he writes porn. That's the reason you get the dialogue. What I'd always wanted was somebody to touch my daddy fantasy.
Put your swollen and gorged behind in my face, because I am an ape.
Wow, we just had collectively everyone switch off of this podcast.
That's what he's typing every time we see him typing. He's
that
actually
it?
typing. Yeah, he's typing his writing.
Dear
porn.
Penthouse, you would never believe that this would happen to me, but I was doing a podcast.
Wait,
So
do you write ape porn? Is that what you're? Hey, gross.
So we just cut.
Yes,
We just jump from the apes being led away from that back to the command center.
If you're going to do something like, hey, we're going to take our central character and go force him to have sex and inseminate an ape, there needs to be a moment
Fade
of
to
breath.
black or something.
Go back out to a wide shot or something like that, or give me a transitionary shot.
Play
But it
some
is
boff sax.
Bam, and he's in another location.
Show like the hotel vacancy sign going vacant. No, not vacant.
Right.
Like just something like no.
Show the train going into the tunnel. The rocket launching.
I want to watch that. That'd be hilarious. That'd be great.
But it needed something because as it is, you just literally have the moment of, hey, he's going to go mate. Hey, he's going to go good in the auction fields. It's just abrupt.
We cut back to our command center prop. A set that I actually wanted to reuse like 4 times in the previous scenes. But we cut back to it and he says, hey, here's 254. But yeah, what did he say? 254 processed. And then the same 1 chimp and 3 gorillas are kind of being led through. We've got the man on the phone that we saw earlier just kind of talking about what's going on. There was an entire scene that was cut.
Okay, what is the scene?
The scene is between Breck and the assistants because... and his assistant's talking about what's going on. So we move out to the outdoor mall where there's an auction that's about to take place, and we see Brett kind of coming into the scene. We get like another moment where he's in an office talking about work that we don't actually have. Just to kind of bring him back into this movie.
You know, there's no MacGuffin type thing in this film where there's something that they're worried about that really has nothing to do with it.
That'd be kind of cool.
But the film, if it had something to where they had something pressing them, like they needed their attention pulled away, and then the information about the apes was some kind of undercurrent, would at least push them. But all they do, their sole purpose is to bitch and moan about apes. They need something else, and maybe that's the reports about that we're living in a dome or whatever that would be, that the virus is out here and we can't contain it.
Well, that's a whole question about what I mean. Breck in the future minutes start talking about next week. Start talking about these moments, and like. That needed to be earlier. Like, I need to know what the society is happening right now. Would the scene of the ape being beaten, the scene at the beginning, the scene at the very beginning they cut about the ape escaping and the police officer shooting the ape and then finding him that he's been brutalized, have been those moments you needed to kind of give a threat? Yeah, because there's no threat right now. This is just generic society in the future.
There's no threat. There's no throughput. That there's other things. The only things we know about this society is that they live in a very cold cement type environment.
Yeah, no green.
Apes serve the humans, and the governor's worried about a smart ape. That's really the only definition that we have of anything that's going on here. If you're going to, damn it, Richard, you've not seen the future films, but the future films we have the ape level. We get to know our ape characters. We have our human levels, but there's a thing that they're working towards that becomes something bigger for the story. And you need those levels for this to be moving around, because nobody has a purpose in this story outside of that humans are one human's terrified of apes. That's really the entire story encapsulated to this point.
But we're 20 years in the future. And history repeats. So I'm not sure that these leaders 20 years in the future would be afraid of the same things that we were 20 years before, because we forget. We're very forgetful. We forget about how media changes. We forget about how human rights changes, and how labor unions work and that kind of stuff, and what it means to work for I'm totally digressing. But there's something lost in the fact that these people are still fixated on something that happened 20 years ago, and we have no reason for to be there, because they should be moving forward and forgetting.
I think that you could stay on that they're the ones worried about what happened 20 years ago. Let's say you keep that element. But then let's look at what Blade Runner did. Blade Runner has all these levels where you're worried about the replicants and what they become, but then there's also a whole society of people that are downtrodden, that look like they're oppressed, that are just getting by, while they also are throwing all those advertisements on them. You can build all these things and keep one group kind of worried about one thing, and I think the 20 years is not a bad idea, but there's nothing to take away from it, because the only worry they have is 20 years ago.
Would this movie be more effective if we saw a class system as well?
I think so. It would have made more sense.
We saw the waiters the waiters unable to get jobs,
right?
But would that have been more a stark contrast if we could see the apes?
Okay, if you're
moving into society a little more.
That's a great point you bring up, the people who've lost jobs. Why isn't that report coming into the government?
Right.
We're having riots once again of people losing their jobs. Now there's a further continuation of what this is doing to society and how it's tearing it apart.
Man, I want to talk about it in the next minute, just because.
Okay,
we're
done.
I have a criticism about one of the actors.
Let's just shut it down. We're done.
Okay. All right. So, Ape 254 is now going outside,
Every time when I heard 8254, all I can think of is Les Miserables 24601.
I've never seen
That's
it.
been
Have
on,
you never seen it?
I
been on
don't
cable
typically
a lot
watch like musicals.
Don't watch the musical. Hugh Jackman is phenomenal. Russell Crowe he's a great actor, but
Not a good
he's
singer.
he was
Not a
not meant for
powerful
that.
singer.
Yeah,
Can we
and that
talk
role
about
he's
the-
got to be big and beefy, and his voice
Can we
just
talk
isn't
about the
there.
Henry Cavill rumor?
I
Which
don't
is?
know what rumor this is.
Do we need to bring this on an in between?
It's an in between.
Okay,
Black Widow and the Henry Cavill rumor. It may not be true, and we can talk about it, and it won't be relevant when people hear this. But yeah,
all right, we'll talk about that.
Well,
in between.
not all of our in between won't be relevant by the time people hear it.
Well, no,
depending on when they hear it. I
It's-
mean, if you come in a year
I've said
from now,
before, once we do one more recording session, then I'm going to start releasing the in between, so they'll relatively be
but what
out
I'm
in
saying
time.
is, you listen to it.
Let's
from a
talk
year
about
from
Super
now,
Tuesday.
It doesn't make anything
No.
sense. Anyway,
So let's go back to Apes. We're 10 minutes into this. I don't want to blow everything off here.
we're now in the mall.
Yeah.
well, hang on. So, are they training apes just to do one specific task?
That's what I don't understand, too, in the auction.
That'd be the equivalent of I have a guide dog, and my guide dog only takes me to the front door. That's all its job is. It take me, and I have to have a second guide dog that takes me across the street. And now I got a third guide dog that walks me through my house. I mean, giving a ape one job makes no sense.
Well, and I hope the audience will forgive me for going back again to slave era films, but you're evoking that. If you are going to auction a human being, let's be honest, that's what these are, you're going to say what traits the person who buys it would get with that purchase. You're going to say, has shown incredible intelligence, has done this and this. They don't even do that. It's like, yep, put him up there.
It's grade A1.
So they lead Caesar and the three gorillas into a hallway, and you hear the handler say, 254 processed for auction. That's the only word we hear is for auction.
Right.
And then we immediately go to a chamber area, the mall again, a different angle of the same mall. How many locations do they have? Because it feels like the same mall because of the Stark stuff, but it feels like a slightly different location in the same mall.
Right.
They move outside, and we now have kind of a chaotic moment where we've got gorillas and apes with handlers. We have people all dressed in black with the occasional woman that's got a blue jacket because she couldn't read the memo. And we have a assemblage of like silver chairs on one side. There's no stage, no apparent nothing. They're all just kind of ambling about in this area. It makes no sense. He said auction, but if I were watching the movie, I wouldn't really pick up that that's what's about to happen.
So you touched on something that I had thought of, and that's bringing them out into this area. We should have had a shot down a hallway with light outside that they're coming, and we hear the shuffling of apes like they're bringing the cattle out.
Like multiple apes.
Yes.
Not just like they're just suddenly outside.
It would allow us, even if you did that kind of cut where you heard the sound underneath when Caesar goes in for the mating session, and then we cut outside, and then you could then undercut the sound of shuffling feet with chains, go to a shot that suddenly they just start going past, and we see Caesar. And when he comes outside, the light is so bright, he gets blinded. Anything like that where he feels overwhelmed by the smoke, we don't get that. We get, bam, we're out here. It's just another, let's turn on the camera and shoot.
You want to compliment the director for all of these moments, and I just can't.
Not in this one.
I go
don't.
back to the fact that this feels just very rushed. Like not even like we have a set, we got a scene, let's go make it happen. Let's do
agree
the
on
shots.
this one.
Here it is. So 40 seconds into it, we get the SS police walking outside of the upper deck.
Which just look like a couple of guys from Spaceballs to me.
They do look like
We ain't
Spaceballs. That's
found
actually
shit.
hilarious.
Yeah.
So Breck is now here. He's now back in the scene again. We haven't seen him since he spoke to Armando.
Right.
Like hours ago.
No auctions will begin without the governor and his entire staff showing up.
Exactly.
There was a scene that was supposed to happen in the office that leads Breck to be downstairs as a part of this auction. There, for all of the extras they use for the gorillas and the chimpanzees and the orangutans and the guards, the minute we go to this auction, it's very stark. There's not a lot of people. There's not a lot of people auctioning. There's not a lot of governance happening. It's just kind of it's not as full as I would expect for an auction to be.
Well, and if you're going to make it some kind of upper echelon auction, you need to say that this is
a private event.
You're right.